It's the 25th year anniversary of Half-Life, the first one. And seeing as I've been told the series is sort of only half done and there's no games coming out yet that carries it on, here is how I imagine the series ends. This is Half-Life, the third half of the story. Gordon Freeman looks at Alex. He says, "We have to get out of here. The place is going to blow up." She goes, "I can't. My legs hurt. The final boss injured it." Gordon goes, "Oh, I don't have time for this. This isn't great. It's going to slow us down." For a moment, he thinks just about leaving her. Like, there wasn't any use in both of them perishing. And after everything they had went through, somebody had to find out about all his heroics and how he saved the day. And I guess at the same time, as if the aliens come back, then they had to know how to defend themselves as well. That was the way he was going to sell that story. He realises, well, he couldn't do such a heinous thing of leaving this lassie behind, so he sighs one last time and he goes, "Right, I'll help you. I'll help carry you." So in one quick swoop, he bends down and he tosses her over his shoulder. She's taken by surprise, doesn't expect him to do it, but this isn't the weak, wimpy Gordon Freeman at the beginning of the story. This was the man that could do everything. This was our hero. So he grips her legs and starts running through the facility, and he's like, "Oh, she's heavy, and she's much heavier than she looks." But he knew this wasn't the time to give dietary advice. He says, Keep watch behind us. Like, take my blaster pistol. If any of those aliens start chasing us, I need you to shoot them so they stop chasing us." They get through the base. The walls are trembling and sweating and cursing for them to leave before the place ceases to exist. Flames are creeping out of everywhere they could and waving him goodbye as he skips past them. They get to a junction and Gordon looks both ways. He can't mind where they came from. He goes, "Alex, what way was it? What way did we come from?" And she goes, "It was left. It was definitely left." Gordon nods and he decides to go right. His pace had slowed a little bit. The final battle had taken a lot out of him, but unlike Alex, he would fight through the pain if it meant his survival. So up ahead, there's a box that gets knocked over and Gordon just stops. And then he growls as these bulbous creatures emerge from the wreckage. He shouts, "Head crabs!" Alex shrieks. He's already retrieved his shotgun from his pocket. They're scuttling towards him, hungry for that sweet taste of a human soul. He's only got one shell left, so he has to make this count. With one hand wrapped around the waist of the woman, he lifts the other hand with the heavy weapon and shouts, "Find another head to crab onto." And with a sudden snap of the trigger, shrapnel spews everywhere. The aliens burst and Gordon runs through the flesh-coloured confetti as though he just reached the finish line of a race. He tosses the gun and runs to the platform of the train. And he gets onto it and he collapses inside and she goes tumbling off his shoulder. He couldn't wait to get back home. He was so tired, but he just wanted to return to normality, to the boring life of a salaryman, to pick up that old mug and just enjoy the sip of stale coffee in the morning, and admire the shine of the monitor as it woke up for another day of work. He looks at her and he goes, "Right, I'm going to have to get to the front of the train and put the power on. Do you still have my blaster pistol?" She goes, "No, I dropped it." He goes, He keeps his thoughts to himself. "Right, in case anything gets in, here's my crowbar. Do you know how to use it?" She goes, "No." He says, "Use the mouse wheel to select and the left button to swing. Or if you're using a controller, press the directional buttons to equip it and then tap R1 to attack." She goes, "Thanks, Gordon." He gives the smallest of smiles and then he pushes his glasses back up his nose and then heads to the front of the train. It's quite dark, it's dimly lit, the shadows are sitting in all the chairs, but he makes it to the front and he presses some buttons and pulls some levers and the train springs to life. Slowly it starts crawling forward and then it's starting to pick up pace. But what's also happened is the lights have all turned back on, and as he turns around, There's G-Man standing there with a revolver in his hand. The man goes, "Mr. Gordon Freeman, I'm surprised you're still alive." Gordon crosses his arms. He says, "Your ultimate weapon is dead, G-Man." Goes, "Yes, it would appear so." The base around them starting to crumble. The ceiling raining concrete and metal onto the train's roof. Gordon didn't know what he was going to do. He didn't have any guns left, and he'd left his trusty crowbar with the lassie at the back of the train. There was only one item left in his possession, but he didn't think there'd be any use with that. He approaches Gordon. He goes, "Here's where it ends for you, Gordon Freeman. I can make more ultimate weapons, just like I can hire more salary men." Because G-Man's Gordon's boss, I think. But this couldn't be the way it would end, not after all the killing. But Gordon didn't know what to do. But before he could finish drawing a blank, there was a thunderous sound of glass shattering from beside him. Someone had come in from the storm and through the window. It happened so fast the mystery man had dove towards G-Man, taking him to the ground and pounding his face while shards of the window are still fluttering through the air. Gordon shouts, "Stone cold!" and throws him a cold one. That was the item he'd been carrying. Stone Cold Steve Austin rises to his feet and it doesn't even look and catches the beer and rip opens the top and guzzling it down with parched greed. G-Man stumbles up, his flat face is now rippled with mist-coloured bumps. He goes, "Who are you?" Austin wipes his mouth and greets him with a middle finger. He goes, "I'm the ticket inspector, jackass. And if you don't have a ticket, son, you better get the hell off of my train." G-Man fires the gun, but Stone Cold, he's quicker, he's fueled by the refreshing Coors. He kicks him in the gut. G-Man hunches over, he's like, "Ugh," and his head slots right into the waiting hands of Austin. And Austin gives him a stunner, he sells it like The Rock, and the force causes G-Man to just propel backwards and through the gap and out the moving train. Gordon had been rooted to the spot for most of it, but Stone Cold slowly approached and offered a hand. Gordon, he was hesitant at first, but after a little bit of consideration, he replied with his own. The pair of them, they squeezed tight, each one giving a smirk. "Stone Cold, you son of a bitch." After that brief moment of masculinity, they both accept a draw. Both of them collapse into the benches across from each other. They're knackered and weary after the day's events. Stone Cold, he's leaning back, he's staring up at the ceiling while Gordon's looking at the wreckage of the base as it goes past them. Gordon goes, "It's going to be a long way back to Madison Square Garden." Austin sighs, "Well, all I need is a couple more cold ones and I'll be fine." Gordon goes, "Well, that was the only one that I had." Gordon shakes his head, but his face drops as Stone Cold narrows his eyes.